3 years ago, $10,000 put into a company that does nothing but build cooling systems for data centers would be worth more than $170,000 today. And it never built a single chip. The company is Vertiv, and all it did was sell the picks and the shovels that the entire AI build-out runs on. And that's how this game tends to work. Because in a gold rush, the steadiest money, it's always gone to the ones that are quietly selling the gear, not exactly the ones that are always swinging for the gold. And right now, that same thing is happening in memory, where AI is completely eating it up faster than the world can make it. And the memory it craves is HBM, or high bandwidth memory. It's the chips that are stacked right next to every AI processor, where prices have roughly doubled in a single quarter. The makers are completely sold out into next year, and that's why Micron just crossed $1 trillion. But Micron happens to be the obvious name, and the real money is in the picks and the shovels that are underneath it. The memory suppliers, well, they're going to get paid no matter which maker ends up winning. And those are the names that we're going to be hunting down in today's video. And I'm also going to make certain to cover 2 ETFs that cover this area the best at the very end. So here's how I'm going to look at this memory stack framework. It's 5 layers, and every single one is a choke point, a spot where this whole thing grinds to a halt without it. At the very top is the interface, the chips that let memory actually run at AI speeds. Below that, the tools, the machines that physically build the memory. Then the inspectors, the systems that catch a single defect before it ruins a chip. Under them, the testers, because nothing ships until every layer is proven. And at the foundation, the bonders and the materials, the technology that fuses the chips together and the raw ingredients every fab burns through. That's the whole stack. And I mapped every layer of it to find the suppliers sitting on the top. The companies that win, whether SK Hynix, Samsung, or Micron, comes out ahead. And most of them you've never even heard of, which is exactly why you're going to want them on your watch list right now, because this is a 5-year build and we're still in the first few innings. So let's go ahead and start at the top. Oh, but before we do, if you get any value from my research and videos, please consider pressing the like button so my videos can continue to grow. And if you'd like to get firsthand access to some of my research, my portfolio, my stock trades, then hey, come on over to Patreon and check out the community. We'll start with the top layer, which is the interface, and that completely belongs to Rambus. 3 companies control 97% of a market that most investors have never even heard of, and Rambus happens to be one of them. It doesn't make memory, it makes the registering clock driver, the chip that sits on a DDR5 module, and it keeps the data clean at speeds that AI demands. So the memory module simply does not run without it. On top of that, Rambus owns the underlying memory patents, so the big manufacturers also paid a royalty on the memory that they sell. Put those two together, and Rambus gets paid twice on the very same chip. Once to build it and once to license it. And that royalty engine carries straight into its HBM4E controller for the next generation of memory. However, there is an open antitrust inquiry that's worth keeping on your radar. But the model itself, well, it's so clean that its numbers barely look like a chip maker's. Over the last 4 years, Rambus revenue roughly doubled, but operating income exploded almost 800%, and the operating margin went from 9% to 37%, because those royalties are nearly pure profit. That's a high margin floor with growth engine bolted on top, and every DDR5 module and every step toward HBM4 still runs through Rambus, and it happens to collect on both. Of all the constraints in that supply chain, there happens to be one precious metal that can bring memory to its knees, and that's gold. Which brings us today's sponsor, Canadian Goldfields Discovery Corp. And the timing stands out. The Gold Miners Bullish Percent Index, which tracks how many gold stocks are flashing buy signals, just hit 0. A drop this complete is extremely rare, and the last time miners were this beaten down, the sector more than tripled off of its lows. And against that backdrop, management and insiders are holding roughly 30%, with institutions at another 30%, meaning that 60% sits with the people that happen to be closest to the story. That happens to be real skin in the game, with drilling set to start very shortly. And the management comes from companies that built billion-dollar miners, K92, BHP, and Ivanhoe. A Canadian Goldfields director is currently a vice president at K92, one of the most successful junior-to-producer stories of the last 20 years. Their flagship Miminiska Gold Project sits in northwestern Ontario, the gold country that's produced more wealth than the legendary Klondike. Klondike, where 2 high-grade zones are already confirmed at either end of Miminiska, with 12 kilometers of banded iron formation between them that's never been systematically drilled. And that gap is the real story. Confirmed grade on both ends, insider conviction, and a drill program aimed at ground nobody has touched. And as always, please do your own homework. But hey, if you want to learn more about Canadian Goldfields discovery, then please check out the link down in the description. Let's go ahead and drop down a layer to the tools that physically build the memory. A high bandwidth memory burns through roughly 3 times the equipment per gigabyte of standard memory. And the company supplying the widest slice of that equipment is Applied Materials, with its hands in almost every step. The deposition, the etching, the layering that turns sand into a working chip. It builds those tools side by side with the memory makers, even running a joint research center with SK Hynix. So its machines get designed into the next generation before anyone else even gets a shot. And it just rolled out the Sim3Z Magnum for etching the taller, denser stack HBM demands. Now, the company itself is a steady grower, and that's fine. But the memory piece inside it is completely on fire. Its high bandwidth memory revenue went from almost nothing to roughly $1.5 billion in a single year, and management is targeting $3 billion next. So you're buying a stable, cash-rich giant with a memory afterburner that's tripling, all on its own. Its opposite number on the same rung is Lam Research, and Lam is the purer memory bet because the physics are simple. Every time a memory stack gets taller, you cannot build it without more of Lam's tools. Lam owns the etching and deposition steps that carve the deep vertical channels and fill them with copper, which is literally how you stack memory into a tall HBM chip, with tools like Sabre 3D and Syndion sitting inside every major memory maker. Lam's revenue fell during the last memory downturn, then snapped straight to an all-time record the moment spending came back, climbing 24% in a single year with net income jumping 40%. And of course, when memory begins to move, Lam doesn't just participate, it turns harder than almost anyone because memory is exactly where it's most exposed. And then when we go one rung lower and you hit the layer whose whole job is to catch a defect before it ruins a chip, and that would be the inspectors. And the first name there is Onto Innovation. Bonding memory into a hybrid stack creates up to 1,000 times more connections than the old method, and a single buried crack scraps the entire part. So Onto built the high-speed imaging that sees those defects underneath the surface. And its new Dragonfly G5 system was just picked by a leading memory maker for inspecting next-gen HBM4. Onto's whole company does only about $1 billion a year, and yet one customer just locked it into a purchase agreement worth more than $240 million running through 2027. That's nearly a quarter of a full year's revenue committed years in advance by a single buyer, which is about as close as you're going to get to a guaranteed forward business as this industry is going to see. When a customer commits to you that far ahead, it's because they can't build it without you. If Onto's edge is seeing the defects buried under the surface, KLA's edge is sheer scale, because KLA is the closest thing this whole industry has to a monopoly, running many times the size of its nearest rival in finding nanoscale defects, with flagship systems like its broadband plasma line that nobody else even comes close to. And the job only gets bigger over time, because the more advanced that these chips get, the more places that a single defect can hide. And KLA is the company that the whole industry leans on to catch them. Over the last 4 years, KLA's revenue grew 76%, while its operating income climbed 110%, and its operating margin pushed from 36% to 43%. And there is no real number 2, so when the whole industry needs more inspection, almost every one of those dollars funnels into a single company. Now, previously, the inspection catches all of the flaws, but catching them isn't the same as proving that the chip actually works. And that's the next rung down, the testers. 2 companies own that layer, and you start with Teradyne because a stacked memory chip takes up to 10 times the testing of an ordinary one, which is why Teradyne just launched the Magnum 7H, built specifically for high bandwidth memory. But I want to be precise, because Teradyne comes with a little bit of a twist. At the company level, total revenue has actually slipped about 14% over over 4 years, as its oldest test lines begin to cool off. Underneath that flat surface, though, the memory engine is completely taking over. Its DRAM test revenue, it went from $80 million to $350 million, more than 330%. And AI work has already climbed past 60% of the business and is heading towards 70%. So as memory goes vertical, the part of Teradyne that's exploding is exactly the part that's winning. Now, the other half of that rung is the global giant Advan, which by most estimates holds around 2/3 of the entire chip testing market. And the clever part is that the same family of testers checks both the AI processor and the high bandwidth memory stacked all around it, with platforms like its T5835 memory tester. So Advan is effectively the toll booth for the whole testing layer. In its most recent fiscal year, sales grew about 45%, but operating profit jumped almost 120%. Because once you're the standard that every chipmaker has to test on, the orders just keep compounding. The one practical note is that here in the States, it trades over the counter, so it's a bit thinner to buy, but the business sits at the dead center of this entire story. Now we'll move down to the foundation with 3 different names, because the bottom layer it happens to do 2 different jobs: fusing the chips together and feeding the fab the raw materials that it consumes by the ton. And we'll start with the fusing, where the leader is Bessie. HBM4 increasingly can't be built at all without hybrid bonding, which welds the memory dies directly, copper to copper, instead of joining them with the tiny solder bumps that chips used to rely on. And Bessie happens to be at the front of it, building those bonding lines jointly with Applied Materials and placing chips with an accuracy almost nobody else can hit. Bessie's revenue grew a solid 28% last year, but its order book did something far more dramatic, with new orders more than doubling, up 104% year over year. Now, that gap happens to be the signal, because in this business, orders come a year or 2 before the revenue. And the memory makers, well, they're placing those hybrid bonding orders right now for production in 2027. Now, this one carries a caveat where this is also an over-the-counter name here in the States. But Bessie sits at the gate of how the next generation of memory physically gets built. Then we'll move on to the speculative one, Kulicke and Safa. And I'm going to be straight about why it's even on the list. Kulicke pioneered a cleaner way to weld stacked chips together with heat and pressure instead of solder, and is pushing it towards the advanced stacking that HBM will eventually need, with its Aptura platform and a next-generation process built with Rome. But these numbers, they do demand a little bit of honesty. Revenue has been cut by more than half over 4 years, down 57%, and the company sits right at around break-even today. The entire case happens to be forward-looking. Its advanced packaging line is just starting to ramp, and its real HBM volume is a 2027 story, with its first system still in qualification at a major memory maker. So this happens to be that speculative, patient, higher-risk pick that's on the stack. It's the one that you choose to hold because of where memory packaging is heading, not exactly for what it's earning today. That happens to be the bonding side of the foundation. The other half is the raw materials that every fab is going to be burning through, and that's Entegris, which supplies the ultra-pure chemicals, filters, and polishing materials. And once you're qualified into a production line across dozens of materials all at once, swapping you out is so slow and risky, the customers stay in for years. Here's the number that reframes the whole company. The most advanced AI and HBM chips are only about 5% of all wafers made in the world, yet they already drive close to 30% of Entegris' revenue, because each one soaks up far more material than an ordinary chip. And that intensity roughly doubles with every new node. I'm just going to read that again. So 5% of the wafers, 30% of the revenue. Add it up, and revenue is up 39% over 4 years, with operating margin pushing back to 29%, which means Entegris wins on complexity alone. And complexity is the one thing that memory is guaranteed to keep adding. Now that we've covered that complete full stack, let's go ahead and review how I would invest into these. With $100 to put across these 10 names, I'm not going to be splitting it evenly. I'm weighting it toward the parts of the stack with the most durable growth, The layers that just keep winning even if the data center spending begins to cool off, because every advanced chip on the planet has to pass through them. So the two biggest slices go to the broad equipment and the inspection layers, the tool makers and the defect hunters that nothing gets built without. $25 goes into the tools like Applied Materials and Lam Research. Another $25 goes into the inspectors of KLA and Onto Innovation. Then I'd put $22 into the testers of Advantest and Teradyne. Then I'd put $20 into the foundation, the bonders and the materials with Entegris, Besi, and Kulik & Soffa. And the smallest slice of $8, I'd put that towards Rambus. That would be the name that I opened the video with and happens to be at the top of the stack. The royalty model is beautiful, but it's the narrowest name on the board. And with that legal question still open, well, I gotta size it down just a little bit. Best story, smallest bet, that's just discipline. Now that happens to be the whole framework rung by rung, but maybe you don't want to manage 10 different tickers. So before we wrap, here are the two ETFs that people always ask about and exactly what they do and don't cover. There's the Roundhill Memory ETF, DRAM, and a brand new fund called HBMX. Most people will ask which one to pick, and that's the wrong question in my mind, because these two actually cover completely different parts of the same machine. DRAM only holds the makers' names like Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung, with not a single supplier among them. But HBMX does a little bit of both, owning the makers but also reaching down into the supplier stack, the equipment, the packaging, and the materials. So the real choice here is, well, it's kind of simple. DRAM buys you the makers. HBMX, well, it buys you the blend of the whole stack. But the pure picks and shovels layer, the 10 names that we just walked, that's the one that nobody packages completely for you. That one you still have to build on your own. So there you have it. That's the memory stack from the top to the bottom. As always, I hope that you learned something new, and thanks so much for watching.